Welcome to WSKY Radio. This is a remake of the C# form database, trying to make things a little bit clearer and a little bit more understandable. Although the major one is the clarity of the video. I apologize for the blurriness on the past video. Hopefully this will clear things up and you can pop it out at full resolution and it will still look good. Let's get started. Let's go ahead and start a new project. It's going to be a Windows form application. For the sake of this particular video, we'll just call it database setup. Say OK, and we'll get our form. Let's open up our form a little bit here. And we just started out by creating ourselves a project. Let's go over into our Solution Explorer. In the Solution Explorer, click on the database setup, right click, do a add, right click, and then do a add new item. And then when the pop-up window appears, go down and select service-based database. I'm going to call my database customers and say add. When the choose your database objects pops up, we're going to make this connection later on with the objects. So for right now, let's just say cancel that out and we'll get ready to move on. So at this point, we have a customer's database that's showing up in our Solutions Explorer. I'll now go and I'll set up my window over here, which is my Server Explorer, and open up the database we just created, which you can see has many selections underneath in many areas. We're going to do a table. So click on Table and then right click, Add New Table. When you click on the Add New Table, what will happen is this window will come up here, which allows you to start identifying what the columns in the table are going to be. Well, one of the first things that we want to do is we want to have an ID. That's going to be an integer. So we will designate it as an integer, and we definitely want to have every entry getting an ID. So deselect the allow nulls because we don't want to allow nulls. The next column is going to be the name, which we will allow, let's say 25 characters, and we need the name in order to know the contact, so that cannot be an empty field. Next will be address, which we're going to give a little bit more characters to deal with because addresses can be long, so we'll say 50 characters in that area. And I don't really care if I know the address, if I have an ID and I have a name, but I do need to have a contact phone. And this contact phone, just in case somebody puts in all numbers, another guy puts in a dash, or depending on who your data entry would be into this particular application, I'm going to put 15 as being the amount, and I do not want to allow nulls. I want to know who this person is. So right there, we've set up the structure of our table. We've entered a database into our project here. But with the ID, we need to have the ID doing an auto increment. We don't want to have to write in an ID number every time. So we'll go down here and find in the column properties the identity specification. If you expand the identity specification and just double click into the identity, you can now see that what it's done is it said, okay, I am going to increment by 1. I'm going to have it start with A1, and I'm saying that it's valid, which will now set up the auto increment on that ID. Over here, look up, we're going to set this ID also as the primary key. And the primary key, let me bring this so you can see it a little bit. You bring up your toolbar for your tables, and in there you'll see this set primary key. So we're going to set the ID as the primary key. At that point, the structure of your table is pretty much complete. You could do other things, but that would be a little bit beyond what this video is for, which is just showing the simple setup and how to make the connection to the form. So now that we have everything kind of set up, let's save. When it pops up, it's going to ask us choose the name of our table. Our table is going to be customers, and we will say OK. Once we've saved, we can go over here to our Server Explorer, open up tables, and you will see that our table is now in here, and it is available for us to make the connection between the form and the table that we just created the structure for. So let's make our connection. Here's our form. We'll bring that up, and then let's go to the data source window and click add new data source. Well, when we do that, of course, we are going to be adding a database, and in this particular case it's the only one that we have that's within this project, so there's no need to worry about the drop down, but you could make new connections or whatever the case may be at this point. But we'll just continue on and say next. We do want to save this connection as part of our project, and at that point it will ask us, okay, well, what is the data source within that database? What's the objects? Well, we want our table. And when you check mark the table, you'll see that the customers and all the information underneath is all check marked, because that's what we want. We can press finish, and after we've pressed finished, we now have a connection between our form and the database table that we have created. Let's put the table onto our form at this point. So before we actually pull that into the form, of course, go ahead and save. Once you've saved, I usually go over into the Solution Explorer and just refresh everything so I can make sure that everything in my Solution Explorer list is all up to date. I'll come back over here to my data source area and take the customers and just drag it right over onto the form. Now when I do this, I can just open it up a little bit on the form to give it a nice even. You get a self-generated toolbar, which will happen to give you explanations in further tutorials down the future, but we're not going to worry about those right now, because the main reason for this tutorial is to simply show you how to get this all set up and get it onto your form, which we have now done. So that is basically how you create a database. You go through the building of a table, you set the characteristics of that table, you make the data set, and you make the connection between the form and the database, and then pull that table in and lay it out onto your form. It's very easy, actually. I know that it can be a little bit intimidating, and it was for me when I first did it, but once you've done it once, I think you'll find that it becomes pretty easy and straightforward, and then you just need to learn how to operate the tools to control that table. So let's now just kind of save everything. I don't like to lose my work, so I save pretty much in between any major component, and we can run it. Let's just press our button for debug. Our application comes up. As you can see, it's a form. It's all got our table in here. You can start entering names and addresses, and of course in here you need to have a phone. We'll talk about save functions and everything for the database later on, but your controls are there, your table is there, the ability to put information in is there. Just need to be able to run these save functions, which will be in a later tutorial. Now, I will show you this. While the form is up and running, if we didn't enter a contact phone, it's going to try to do a auto save when you close the window. But when you close the window, it's going to give you this warning. Now, it's got a bunch of stuff in here, but basically what it's saying is that you had set a structure that you cannot have a null for the phone field, which we left blank. So it needed to have something in there, which is an exception within the program for doing debugging and everything. But in the future, of course, you'll have to have it all up and running, and then you wouldn't be able to save it unless you had all those fields filled. So this is Jeff at WSKY Radio. I hope this turns out a little bit better than the last one, and that it helps you along and makes it easier for you to see, because there's really no new information from the last video. I just wanted to try to make things a little bit clearer as we went. Have a good day, and I hope that you'll subscribe and that I'll see you later on with further videos.